if you want to go ahead and dive into the Mariners.
Switching gears over to our Seattle Mariners, we have a couple. It's funny, we have a couple little spring training things, but then we get immediately into the regular season. Opening day has taken place. Not at home yet. We'll get to that in this upcoming week. But we head over to our Seattle Mariners, going to our game recaps. So as I mentioned, 2 games in spring training over the past week. April 4th versus the Arizona Diamondbacks. That game taking place, I believe, while we were recording. A win 6-3. Played the game. Nefi Castillo going 2 for 4 with a run and 2 RBIs. And then the 5th, the final spring training game of the season, at the Cincinnati Reds, losing that one 9-12. Player of the game, Cesar Izturis Jr., going 2 for 3 with a run, 3 RBIs, and being left on base twice. The Mariners finished spring training with a 9-7 record. So I don't buy it. It's like preseason football. I don't ever buy into the record,
Yeah.
People be like, oh, we went 4-0 in the preseason. The 0-16 Lions went 4-0 in the preseason. So don't care.
It doesn't dictate the season.
So we head over to the Mariners opening series against the Minnesota Twins on the road, which got delayed a game because think about this. April in Minnesota. How's that going to go?
I mean, our weekend here in Seattle was kind of crazy with the weather.
Yeah, but we didn't get snow.
Yeah.
And even if we were playing opening weekend here, we have a roof.
Yes.
So,
exactly.
it is kind of mind-boggling. Mm-hmm. The Minnesota Vikings Stadium has a roof.
Mm-hmm.
What? Anyway, so the April 7th opening day that was originally scheduled got moved to the 8th, which was going to be an off day. So April 8th, as we take a look here at the scores, April 8th at the Minnesota Twins winning that opening day game 2-1. Player of the game, outfielder Mitch Haniger, with 1 hit, 1 run, a 1.250 on base plus slugging, and 2 RBIs. That 2-run homer that he had, obviously being the difference in the 2-1 win. April 9th at the Twins, a 4-3 win. That's a comeback win. Player of the game, first baseman Ty France, going 3 for 5 with 2 RBIs and being left on base twice. Julio Urias would get his first MLB hit in that game, that being a leadoff double in the top of the 9th to get the scoring going. And to represent actually the tying run, I believe it was. So that was a really cool game to see. And then the 10th at the Twins, a 4-10 loss. The Twins really got all over Mariners pitching, and Marco Gonzalez just could not find his location. Played the game again. Mitch Haniger in the DH spot, going 2 for 4 with a run and 3 RBIs, hitting a 3-run homer to sort of kind of bring the Mariners back into it. At that point, after that home run, it was 4-6, but then the Twins sort of really were able to trail away. So as it sits right now, I mean, it's kind of weird. You got a 4-game series to open it up, and it ends on a Monday. This does not really happen. So that game to finish up the series will happen at 4:00. But I mean, 2-1, where we sit right now, I'm okay with it. I mean, they've kind of picked up where they left off with the sort of cardiac kids mindset, those 2 one-run wins. So I liked what I saw from Robbie Ray. Had a good outing, didn't have his best stuff. So if he's able to hold the Twins to a 1-run game and not have his best stuff, I think that's a positive sign. Logan Gilbert looked shaky at first in that April 9th game, but it was able to really calm his nerves and start using his secondary pitches, which he'll need to do if he wants to go deep, because he really relied heavily on that fastball last year, and you can't do that because people adjust. But so far, I'm okay with it. There are some things that need to, be adjusted and worked on. But baseball is a game of 162 games in the regular season, and we're 3 games into it.
Yes.
So I'm not going to sit here and freak out too much about anything. So we'll switch over to our Player of the Week segment this week, which has, as a little inside joke between Bel and I, has garnered interesting attention. I had Ty France at first base in 11 at-bats. He has 4 hits, which leads the team. 1 run, a double, 2 RBIs, 5 total bases, 2 walks, a 364 batting average, a 500 on-base percentage, a 455 slugging percentage, and a 955 on-base plus slugging. And Bell's pick is not a bad pick either. I want you to take a look at that for me.
I went ahead and went with JP Crawford, who had 8 at-bats, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 double, 4 total bases, 2 walks, a .375 average, a .45 on-base percentage, a .500 slugging percentage, and a 1.045 OPS. What is
On base
that?
plus
There we
slugging.
go. Oh my God.
It's just both of
Totally
them
lost
added
it. Yeah.
together. For a while, I didn't know the acronyms either. It's all right. But yeah, I mean, JP, both of those guys, you know, it's funny. It's kind of like when JP signed his extension. We'll get to in a second.
Mhm.
Ty put it up there, and you can tell those guys are buddies. But two guys really that in the infield at least are gonna lead this offense. I know JP's not necessarily a big home run guy, but his bat has really improved, you know, since he's been with the Mariners, and he's been an on-base machine. You know, Ty France is a guy that, you know, is kind of known for his offense when we acquired him in the trade with San Diego, and it's really performed well defensively. So guys that were kind of parallels of each other, you know, JP Crawford, really good defense, bats growing, Ty France, really good offense, gloves growing. Two guys that really will be a big factor in the success this year. So good picks.
Ty France is on here as your player of the game for April 9th. And then you have Mitch Haniger on the other two games against Minnesota. Do you think it's weird to not have Mitch as one of the players of the week?
In a way, yes. I mean, if we're looking at it, I mean, I always looked at player of the game things two different ways. Like when we did the podcast, when I had like Bennett or Omari on it, and we'd look at player of the game, Bennett would go for like the feel good story of the week, or big moments. If you wanted to go with the big moments thing, I would go with Mitch Haniger, obviously the 2-run homer and then the 3-run homer. But like statistic wise, I think he had like a 164 average the last time I checked it. It could have obviously updated, but you know, I'd like to see more of a consistent bat. Is just kind of where I went with it.
Yes, I can see that
in that regard. So that's how I looked at it. So looked over to team news here on the 4th of the month. The team was really sort of starting to whittle it down. So can I have you look at that as we look at team news?
Yeah. So on team news on April 4th, Donovan Walton got optioned to AAA Tacoma, and Mike Ford got reassigned to a minor league camp. As we look on to April 5th, Wyatt Mills got optioned to AAA Tacoma, and 3 players got reassigned to minor league camp. That was Devin Sweet, Billy Hamilton, and Steven Souza Jr.
So yeah, you can see there that it's like the preseason part of the NFL where they start to whittle down to the main roster. And I know that Souza had some home runs, sort of like the Mitch Haniger, how we just looked at that.
Yeah.
He had some nice home runs, and I think he led the team in spring training home runs. But the team opted to go for, I think, 10 relievers and 3 catchers. So they were going to that sort of area there. And both Hamilton and Souza, I believe, are in AAA. So they're with the Rainiers right now, and they could be called up at any point. But that's at least in the early part. Again, 162 games. That can change at any minute. That's where they're going at the time, because I know some people were like, hey, what the hell? Why isn't Souza on the opening day roster? You've already got a crowded outfield. You know, we talked about this with Julio and Jared Kelenic, Haniger, Winker. I'm missing somebody here. We'll get to it in a second. Oh, Kyle Lewis is on injured list. But, I mean, it makes sense to me. I know there was some outrage there. We already talked about opening day in Minnesota being postponed thanks to inclement weather.
Yes.
And then we have the opening day roster. We break this down into a couple because, 28 names we'll have to go through. So we'll look at pitchers here. Matt Brash, Diego Castillo, Matt Festa, Chris Flexen, Logan Gilbert, Ken Giles is a reliever who's currently on the injured list. We talked about his injury last week. Marco Gonzalez, Anthony Mashevitz. That's a weird name.
That's really good job pronouncing that.
Yeah, Mashevitz had to, in my time working with him, I had to nail some of those down. Andres Munoz, Yohan Ramirez, Robbie Ray, Casey Sadler on the injured list and won't be back this season unless he recovers miraculously, which you've seen before. Paul Sewald, Justice Sheffield, Drew Steckenrider, and Eric Swanson round out the pitchers. As we move over to the infield route here, JP Crawford, Ty France, Adam Frazier, Dylan Moore. So the way that Rick Riz on the radio says it is Eugenio Suarez.
So if you translate it completely in Spanish, it's Eugenio. But I could see it. I could see it flowing.
I'm trying to nail this down. And so Bel, like after the last, I think right after we acquired him in the trade, kind of poked at me and laughed. So I want to nail that down. Because we're going to have to say his name for several months.
Sure, be nice to know the correct pronunciation or even what he prefers in English.
I'm sure we can look it up. but
Yeah.
I'll just go with Suarez for the time being. As we head back at the outfield here, Abraham Toro and Evan White on the injured list, and I think we were looking at 6 to 12 weeks with that sports hernia. And we head over to outfielders here, like we just talked about. Mitch Haniger, Jared Kelenic, Kyle Lewis on the injured list currently, and no real timetable for him yet. Julio Rodriguez and Jesse Winker. And then the catchers, the three catchers, which was interesting to a lot of people: Tom Murphy, Kyle Raleigh, and Luis Torrens. I mean, I don't have a lot to say on this roster. It kind of sorted itself out the way that I thought it would. The relievers is interesting, but the bullpen was of huge strength of this team last season. And then the catchers is an interesting thing for me because I have to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of Tom Murphy, but it's good to have guys that are comfortable with your pitchers that are comfortable with different catchers. One guy isn't always necessarily going to be, the number one pick for all these pitchers. In some cases, that is the case where someone's got a star catcher. But Cal Raleigh is a guy that's young, and his, at least in spring training and what I've seen in these Twins game, on the game that he caught for the Twins, I believe on the 9th, and he's catching today. Bat presence looks a lot more calmer than he did last season, and he looks like he's improved defensively. So if he can continue that and really continue to grow into that number one catcher, fine with it. But having other guys like Murphy and Torrens around him isn't bad in competition.
Yeah.
Competition.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm okay with that. I mean, do you see anything you want to note on the opening day roster?
No, I unfortunately didn't get to watch the opening day games or opening season games. Just kind of curious how Julio did.
I mean, anytime. Well, and this is the thing too. I talked to a buddy of mine about this. Anytime you skip AAA, which is the closest thing you can get to major league pitching, right? You're probably going to struggle a little bit with pitches, and on any of the off speeds, like these curveballs and these changeups that guys are throwing at you, they're not going to give you anything meatball, right? They're not going to give you these easy fastballs to hit.
Right.
So hitting wise, I mean, he's still working on it. I wouldn't doubt at some point seeing him go down to AAA so he can figure some things out. Because again, the way I wanted it to go, and to his credit, he hit really well in spring training, but I would have liked to see him have like a week or two in AAA to open the season and just really get his legs under him and say, hey, I'm still mashing the ball in AAA. Here's the sample. Because spring training is a bunch of different variations, different levels, so give me a consistent, let them see these guys that are basically MLB quality, and then bring them up.
Yeah.
So the bat's working on it. That double in that game on the 9th was huge, and props to him on that. In the outfield, he's been solid. I think there was one moment in the game on the 10th where him and Winker were going for a fly ball and they almost collided, and the whole time to the back to the dugout, Winker was giving him an earful.
No.
Which, I mean, isn't, it never hurts to hear from a veteran guy.
No.
But he's a rookie. And I think we talked about that as soon as we learned that he was going to get called up. He's going to make some mistakes.
Yeah.
So he's had his moments, yes. And it was really cool. I know you didn't see it, but I'll show you the video when we're done with this. They had a camera on his family the whole time because they flew him in, and he got his first hit in a big moment too, and it was really cool. So I think Julio will be fine. I think he'll be fine. It's just he's a rookie.
Adjusting.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. So I think he'll be fine. And then the potentially biggest news outside of actual opening day happening was that on the 8th, the Mariners extended their newest team captain with Kyle Seager gone, and their Gold Glove shortstop JP Crawford earning a 5-year, $51 million deal. Beginning in 2022 and extending through the 2026 season. Crawford, an AL Gold Glove finalist in back-to-back seasons, winning in 2020. Probably should have won last year. But a guy that really has taken sort of the leadership mantle up, and I think has kind of been passed down to him. And it's just kind of the face of this team right now, I would say. I know Julio's gotten a lot of burn. Robbie Ray is a big acquisition, but a guy that has really – I like he's really been the face. He's been the face, and he's really put himself out there and told this, just been the front man. So getting him locked up long term and showing people that, hey, if you put in the work with us, hopefully going to put our money where our mouth is. Obviously there's a few guys like Haniger, some people would like to see extended. But a guy like JP, who you would like to be around, who's a good clubhouse guy, who the fans love, I think it's a solid move. And you're not, 5 years, 50 million, I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
I think that's perfectly reasonable. So good to see that get locked up. Good to see JP, going to be here for a bit. I think, again, outside of actual opening day taking place, that is a big move. And I know that a lot of people wanted to see the money shelled out a little bit. And I know that's not a huge deal, but I think it was a key important move to keep part of your core locked up. So that is it for Mariners news, and we will look over to league notes. And Bel, what do we have? We have a couple of things for league notes. One of them that we joked about before we started, but what do we got going on over there?
We'll get there. On April 4th, there was a new tribute in place for a Jackie Robinson Day. For the 75th anniversary of Jackie Robinson's debut, all players will wear a Dodger blue 42 on the back of their jerseys. So that would be opening day of April 15th.
Yeah, and I was intrigued because I was like, what does this mean? But I guess the numbers on the actual jersey, no matter what team is wearing it, will have that Dodger blue, and that'll be pretty interesting to see. And that's opening. Yeah, I think you mentioned it. Home opening day here in Seattle, so that'll be a big
exciting.
day.
Yeah. On April 5th, the MLB allowing teams to use electronic pitch signaling devices this season to deter teams from stealing signals.
So I joked with a friend that this is just going to be an Apple Watch. That the catcher's going to. I guess it is, but in the broadcast in these few games, I guess a lot of the Mariners have been really happy with it. I mean, it's just funny. You'll see the catcher sitting there poking with something, and then they'll all look down at it. And at the end of the day, if it helps get rid of sign stealing, and it makes the game more efficient, I don't see why not. So that was I like that move. I was okay with that.
Yeah. Moving on to April 6th here, the news we have is Sabathia gets role with the MLB. Former Yankees star pitcher has been named a special assistant to the commissioner in a role developed specifically for him. So this was not there prior to. Wow.
So it is interesting to see, I think King Griffey Jr. has a role with Major League Baseball now in a sort of similar kind of thing. But to see a guy like CC Sabathia get a role like that, and these are like, I wouldn't call them minor, but they're interesting moves as the league is trying to increase its relevance, in today's format, so
that's pretty cool.
I'm interested to see what change comes from that. You know what I mean? What action is put into place.
Wonder what that even entails too. So that's an interesting role for sure. For April 8th here, Rachel Valkovic makes historic managerial debut with Yankees low A Tampa Tarpons, winning the game.
Yeah, so I know that it's a big deal because she's like the first female manager at any level, in Major League Baseball. Obviously, it's a minor league team, but big to see that happening, and cool that, in that debut also winning that game as well. So that was cool to see, and, obviously for her to make some waves and break some barriers in that regard.
Hopefully she continues to get that success. Also for the 8th, Aaron Judge situation. Yankees offered All-Star OF a deal that would have made him the highest paid annual position player in team history. He denied it and said that he will talk to 30 teams ahead of free agency.
Yeah, anytime the Yankees suffer, I enjoy it. But it's really interesting. Like you said, make him the highest paid annual position player in Yankees history. And the Yankees are the Yankees, so that kind of says something.
Gonna be good
but the comment about free agency is really interesting. At least if we're talking about a Mariners regard, we have a clog in outfield anyway. We have a log jam. There we go. But that's interesting to see. And then, again, anytime the Yankees suffer, I'm okay with it. So would be happy to see him anywhere outside of the American League. Just get him out of there.
You think he just wants to see what his options are before he finalizes
and
something like that?
There were some mega deals made this offseason. Like the Rangers shelled out $500 million. $500 million in their contracts between two players. So
my goodness.
Yeah. The Rangers make questionable decisions, but so I'm interested to see what number he's actually pursuing. But it's going to be a historic number if it declined what the Yankees were going to offer him and what we know about what that number was. So interested to see how that takes place.
I wonder if he just comes back to the Yankees and is like,
Yeah,
never
I wonder
mind,
if
I'll take it.
it's a leverage thing.
Yeah.
It's like throw some more in
Yeah.
there. It probably is what it is, honestly.
And then the last piece of news that we have here for league notes and what Charles and I were joking about, Rob Manfred sends gifts to players. He gave everybody Bose headphones as an appreciation with a slight note that's basically I'm sorry for the lockout.
Yeah, which is pretty laughable.
Yeah.
I mean, guys and that lockout affected, stadium workers and some of these guys who aren't like the big name players like an Aaron Judge, right? I mean, you're messing with their money and their livelihood. So Bose headphones, that was laughable to read. And, you're the commissioner of baseball and you look at all the revenue that a lot of these teams made, like really a pair of headphones that these guys could have paid with a thousandth of their salary. I don't know what was going through the mindset there.
Do you think there is something that might have been appreciated more? I mean, you can't take the lockout back.
Yeah, you can't. I don't know what it's like. How do you get a birthday gift for someone who has everything? I don't.
True.
Maybe I don't know. And a bump in salary minimums. I don't know. I really don't know how you would, what the accurate replacement would be. But headphones would not be on that list.
Yeah, that's not the way to approach things and try to repair relations there. And a couple of the MLB players, I think, already spoke out and said, yeah, this doesn't cut it. So anywho, we're just happy to have baseball back. So yeah. Let's go ahead and look ahead in the schedule.
So the Mariners currently, as of Monday, I know there's a game that's going to be played in 3 hours here, sitting a 2-1 record. I think they were tied for first in the AL West last time I checked, but that could have changed. Looking ahead, they will play a 3-game series against the White Sox outside of their game against the Twins today, April 12th, 13th, and 14th. The 12th game at Chicago being a 1:10 start, the 13th game at Chicago being a 4:10 start, and the game on the 14th being a 11:10 a.m. start, so that they can head out back to Seattle. I know that there were reports of potential tornado warnings in Chicago, so that series might get affected there. We might see a doubleheader or something so that they can get those out of the way. And then the first home opening series of the year for Seattle, the first since that incredible last homestand here at T-Mobile Park, April 15th versus the Astros, a 6:42 p.m. start time. That is the home opener and Jackie Robinson Day. April 16th versus the Houston Astros is a 6:10 start. And April 17th versus the Astros, that Sunday, is a 1:10 start. If you plan on going to the home opener on April 15th, obviously it's Jackie Robinson Day. And I don't think we need to necessarily expand on Jackie Robinson. His story, instrumental to baseball itself, and the evolution of the game itself. And I would like to, I guess, see more. I mean, the numbers thing is going to be cool, but, I guess more like from the league I know last year there was a donation that Major League Baseball made so that a lot of players, younger players like kids, could afford the game, because baseball's not a cheap sport. You got to buy a bat, you got to buy a glove, and those two are expensive on their own. You got to buy a uniform, you got to buy balls if you want to practice on your own. You got to travel if you want to, get to the major league level. At some point, you're going to have to play club baseball, and that's several $1,000s to get into a club baseball level. So it's an expensive sport. It's making something more accessible, and I'd like to see the league do more in that sort of regard. I know the Mariners have done some great things with like the Hometown 9 here in Seattle, and they're working on something new I saw on their broadcast. But also on Jackie Robinson Day is a bobblehead day. If you care about the bobbleheads, it'll be Ken Griffey Jr. Wearing the 42 on his back, which is kind of a cool statement. And for Griffey to do that and be part of something like that, to start wearing the 42 is a really big deal.
Anything exclusive in the team store that you might have?
There will be some Jackie Robinson Day shirts I know of. And it's I forgot the design, but there will be a shirt at least. Outside of that, I'm not 100% sure, but I know there will be a shirt there. So that is it for the Mariners aspect of it.